Welcome to the Window Wisdom Podcast, your guide to replacement windows and more. Hi, I'm your host, Ted Kirk, and this is episode number 15. We're excited today to have a special guest with us, Mr. Alan Cohen. And Alan is actually a customer of North Georgia Replacement Windows, and we thought it'd be valuable to bring Alan in here to talk about his experience and some of the things that led him to replace his windows just from a customer standpoint. I know you've heard from experts and people in the industry and us, but really like to share some information from a customer standpoint. So without further ado, thank you, Alan, for visiting with us today and agreeing to be on our podcast.
My pleasure. Excited to be here.
Really just want to have a conversation with you and talk about a few things. When you started your project, what were the trigger points? What caused you to realize that you really needed or wanted to replace your windows? Where did this process start?
So it started by looking at the windows at the front of our house. There were three big things that went into it. First, from inside, you could see the strain on the windows. It was very clear that the windows, which were about 22 years old and contractor grade, were needed replacement. And the other piece that had to factor in, the wood rot needed to be replaced. So had a decision point to put money into wood rot and try and fix that. And knowing that that would not solve the strain and the heat that kept radiating the house from the sun was a big deal, and realized, after all this time and the wood rot would need to be replaced, it was time to just go ahead and get new windows.
Okay. So when you started that process, and that's probably what most of our customers experience, Georgia climate's pretty brutal. So.
Yes.
So when you started that process, what were some of those important factors that you took into consideration when you decided, okay, we're going to have a company come out and talk to us about this, or we're going to start this investigative process? What were you looking for in a product, and how did you go about starting that project?
So went about starting the project, I think like most people do, they go online, they talk to family, friends.
Sure.
Yes, I went to some big box retailers to get educated and started to learn. And it came across that there were essentially four types of windows from my research. There was aluminum, there was wood, PVC, and there was fiberglass. And these are kind of the fork in the road criteria. So if you were buying a car, it'd be like a sedan, a SUV, a minivan, a pickup truck, what do you want? As we got deeper into it, realized, wow, the fiberglass really distinguishes itself from other window products. And part of the thinking was, didn't want to do this again. So let's go ahead and get a quality product to begin with. So that led to fiberglass. In terms of looking at companies, looking around, the customer service was a huge part of this. You go through homeowner projects, will companies really sell you what you need or what they want you to need? So reputation, trust, and honesty was very important. And, North Georgia did fantastic through that process, even talking me out of a couple of things. Another big factor were customer reviews. The internet's very powerful, and you look online and you look at customer reviews, and obviously you can't please everybody, but overwhelmingly the positive reviews from North Georgia Windows and Doors said a lot. And the other big element of all of this was the Marvin Infinity brand having won the J.D. Power survey and the reputation that came with that. That was a big part of why the decision to go down the Infinity by Marvin path.
Wow. So you really started looking at the material first, and then you sought out the company that you wanted?
So material, and also got into not only the material, but also wanted some sort of solar or energy efficiency. That was really important because the house got so hot during the day, making sure that the combination of the material as well as the energy efficiency was there. There were some things that were important to my wife, who makes all the major decisions about color of windows. That was important. We went with a black color on the interior and exterior, but just making sure that all of those pieces were there to make sure that we were getting a good quality product and service from a reputable company that will be here not just in the short term, but in the long term were key elements.
Sure. And during this process, Alan, did you look at other companies? What was the process like in terms of that investigative work?
Yep, we looked at several companies, had several different companies come out and go through things and gave proposals. There were some views of go ahead and not do replacement windows, but go ahead and do new window inserts. And certainly, while that's an option, I just felt like that was ultimately opening Pandora's box, at least in our house. Certainly recognize that people do that, but I thought the insert was the better way to go. And I also got even better educated on the product specs and the differentiation of what was needed and how people not only install, but warranty both the installation and the product. And by going through that, getting educated, looking at different companies, talking to different people, as you take a step back and look at everything, it became clear that Infinity by Marvin was the way that we wanted to go.
So yeah, that sounds like you did a lot of work on the back end. Would it be safe to say you learned a lot about Windows?
I learned a ton. My family makes fun of me. We made a spreadsheet, or I made a spreadsheet to look at the different things and really understand the difference in specifications and what it was, what's the product, what's the warranty, what's the price point. All of those elements factored in. And we also, during this time, checked several references, not just from Infinity, but from other folks. And I think just the quality of those references and going to look at the different houses spoke volumes. So having that experience and hearing from other customers was a very powerful testimonial.
So you really did your due diligence there.
Windows are not the most inexpensive thing, as I've learned. And it's not like a T-shirt where, if you buy a blue T-shirt and you want a black T-shirt, not the end of the world. So we, if we're going to be doing a lot of windows, we wanted to make sure that we were going to do it. We started with the 11 in the front of the house. We knew that ultimately we would be doing our 38 or so windows. So we wanted to get it right from the beginning. And that's why we took the time to go through the due diligence process. We felt it important.
So from a customer standpoint, and definitely don't want you naming any competitors off here. That's not what this podcast is about. But just from a consumer standpoint, what are some of the things that drew you into our window and what you liked about the Infinity from Marvin fiberglass window versus some of the other competitive products that you were looking at?
The durability of fiberglass and the strength was certainly a big piece. Certainly there's a lot of strength behind it. Another big piece was how it was manufactured and the lack of air bubbles in it. It was and the science behind all of that manufacturing, which I'm the last person to talk about, but I felt very confident in how the energy efficiency was applied to it. A couple of other considerations were the size of the window. You get more window versus frame with the Infinity window, so that was significant in seeing through it. Now, having those windows installed can definitely tell. The color, a lot of windows are traditional, but being able to have them pre-manufactured in the black color that, again, my wife really liked and helped to make our home look more modern and also makes the rooms look different was really nice. So those were parts of that decision process. I mentioned the warranty as well, just provided confidence. It's not just a product, but it's a product and a service that people will stand behind.
So it sounds like it was a pretty good balance between the engineering of the product and also the aesthetics of the product. Pretty safe
Correct.
to say. Okay.
Well stated.
Yeah, cool. Well, just from the standpoint of bringing us in, now having a first phase of windows installed in your home, and we realize that you're actually partly here because you're doing another phase, which we really appreciate that. But how would you describe your replacement window and project experience with North Georgia Replacement Windows?
In one word, fantastic. As we've done different home projects over the years, it was great. Everything from the first call, people show up on time. They're courteous with the time. They take the time to answer questions. I had a ton of questions and there was a ton of patience to answer all the questions because I just know very little about Windows and wanted to get a little bit wiser. So I think having the patience to educate, being able to talk to customers and being very forward with that, being very communicative about the ordering process when things were coming, and even the installation, again, being on time and very thoughtful and considerate. Our kids were home during the time and working through that and around that. And not just the installation, making sure that we were happy, but also just the cleanup. I mean, if I hadn't known that you all were there, I wouldn't have known you were there. So working around trees, bushes, I mean, everything was great. So it was definitely a first-rate experience, which I'm appreciative of.
Good. I know there's a lot of details that go into it. Just from being one of the owners here, I really appreciate hearing that. It's what we strive for. Sometimes we fall short, but I would say the majority of people have a similar experience, and I'm glad to hear that. So, I really appreciate you being here. As we wrap up, is there any other piece of advice or information that you would like to share with homeowners that are starting to consider replacing their windows and doors?
I think the biggest thing is figuring out how many windows you want, and you don't have to do them all at once. You can do them in phases. Keep that in mind and really take a good look at the product you're getting and making sure you have a lot of confidence in not just the product, the company who's going to install it, and the manufacturer behind it. And those were definitely important elements for us, and we couldn't be happier. So thank you.
Well stated. So, thank you for being here today, and we've enjoyed having you, and we hope to deliver the same experience in your next phase of Windows.
Thank you.
Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in today, and if you found the information helpful, please let others know by giving us a rating or review on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify.